Welcome to the City of Bettendorf Committee of the Whole meeting. Today is Tuesday, February 3rd, 2026. It's 6:15 p.m. Welcome. We're glad that you're here. We'll start with a consent agenda item. This is consent B. Let's talk about general obligation bonds. Finance Director Shad.
Thank you, Your Honor. We'll talk again about the bonds we've been talking about for what seems like months now. But the bond sale is upon us. It'll take place next Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. We'll receive bids for just under $21 million in bonds. That's the par amount. We hope to net about just shy of $22 million with premium and everything, but it's broken up into three components. The CIP portion at $8.485 million, an urban renewal portion for $2.845. That'll finish off the Gateway Bridge over Middle Road. And new this year, approved by referendum, the first phase of bonds for our police station construction. We're going to do about $10 million this year, and then the remaining probably 16 or 17 million next year to finish out that project. We do expect some premium, like I mentioned, that'll bring down the par amount of our borrowing, which is good. Projected true cost of interest at the time that our consultants at Baker Tilly put together this pre-sale summary was 3.92%. That's just slightly higher than what we ended up selling for last year at about this time. So I would expect it to come in a little bit better than that. At that level of debt service, I'm currently projecting that our FY27 debt levy rate for our regular bonds will remain at 485, but we'll have to add in about 23 cents for those referendum approved bonds for the first phase of those bonds. You might recall that back during the referendum, we anticipated a levy rate of somewhere around 68 or 69 cents per 1,000 to cover those police referendum bonds. Due to some really fantastic growth in valuation, which we'll talk about a little later, I'm expecting no more than probably 61 cents on the levy rate to fund those bonds. So that's good news too. A little bit less out of everybody's tax bill to pay for that police station. So exciting stuff as we walk into budget here in the next couple weeks. Importantly, the bonds as structured are compliant with the debt management policy that we just revised and approved back in December. You'll remember that we made changes to that policy to target a limit of $9 million in those new general obligation debt and bonds. And we will also, to the best of our ability, target a 15-year amortization schedule for general obligation debt, no more than 20 on revenue debt. All of this debt this year happens to be GO debt. That said, the urban renewal piece does have a revenue component to it. It'll be backed by some of the TIF revenue that's taken from the development out of the TBK area. And obviously, the police station bonds have their revenue source approved by referendum. So importantly, the $8.485 million that we're borrowing for GO is under that $9 million target and will be amortized over 15 years, 14 years of repayments. The other two components will be over 20 years. That's how those have been planned prior to our policy change. So we'll see the structure kind of broken up a little bit across the issue, but importantly, the issue is in compliance with the policy as we revised it just a couple months ago. The $8.485 million is going to cover our general CIP. You know that it's streets, it's alleys, sidewalks, resurfacing, reconstruction. Major projects this coming construction year will be Maple Crest from 18th to 29th, 29th Street from Maple Crest to Middle, and Central Avenue has finally come up with the federal funding to kind of buttress that project and move that along. So from 14th to Pius, that'll take place. As I said, the UR portion, urban renewal portion, will finish off the Middle Road Gateway Bridge, and then we'll issue our first $10 million for the police station. So that will all take place, like I said, Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock. Council will then approve the winning bid at the council meeting later that night. So we'll hope to have good news for you next Tuesday. Shifting just slightly away from the bond sale, I'm going to kind of like set the stage for budget, especially as it comes to the debt service fund. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, for FY27, we've seen really, really solid growth in assessed values. That, of course, is cut nearly in half by the rollback and other legislation that affects taxable value. But you'll see here, assessed values in total are up 14% for FY27. That's based on the assessments from January 1 of 25. The rollback and the other limitations on taxable value have reduced that increase to about a plus 8% on taxable value. Importantly, as we've seen for several years now, a good portion of this increase is from new construction. It's not necessarily appreciation of existing properties. So individual homeowners won't feel a 14% increase in assessed value or an 8% increase in taxable value. A lot of that is due to new construction, new builds in the city. But this growth will permeate throughout the budget. Obviously, it affects taxes in the general fund, but tonight we're talking about the debt service fund and how it will affect, how that growth affects the debt service fund. Directly for FY 26-27, like I said, it brings down pretty significantly the portion of taxes that will need to be levied to fund the police station. So like I said, 23 cents, as you can see in that dark blue bar at the top of the chart for the current year, we'll levy the full amount next year to cover the full amount of the bonds there at 61 cents. But as you can see, as valuations continue to grow, and this is assuming just growth at 3% in taxable value. Again, we had 8% growth for this fiscal year. You'll see the levy rate necessary to fund debt service on the police station continues to drop. The levy rate necessary to fund our regular general obligation debt will drop, assuming we stick to $9 million issues, 15-year amortization, and kind of roll that existing debt off. You can see how the growth affects the levy rate. So this is good news. Obviously, a lot of things can change over the next 10 years, as you see across the chart. Inflationary pressures will probably push that $9 million target up as we get further down the road. Project costs could come to us, project proposals could come to us that maybe we issue more in 1 year than we typically do. So this is just kind of a projection based on what we know today, but I think it's all very good news and based on some pretty conservative assumptions going forward. If we take that long-term outlook and look at how we're able to affect the outstanding GO debt through those policy changes, you can see that we have about $140 million in outstanding GO debt today. Now, this does not include debt that we'll be issuing for the police station because that's going to obviously kind of spike us up for a moment. But it's the debt that we're trying to affect through these policy changes, right? Over the next 10 years, that could be reduced down to just shy of $105 million, a reduction of about 25%. If we stick to that, and again, this doesn't include the police station debt because I want to have a fair comparison, we're using about 47% of our state-mandated legal debt limit today. If you stick to the $9 million and we stick to 15-year payoffs and continue to whittle that down, you'll have that down to 25% in FY35. Planned and future debt, if the top part of the table here is our GO debt, you can see what we're doing this year is just the bonds that we've talked about. As we move into next year, we'll do 8.7 million, ideally to net 9 million, okay? And then finish off the bonds for the police station. And you can see 8.7 going forward. As you move down the table, we move into our enterprise funds and specifically the sewer fund. These are not necessarily, or I should say this first row, sewer SRF revenue for expansion projects is not necessarily planned, but should we decide to move forward with East Annexation, there is a project that would require some borrowing there. And as you know, the wastewater treatment plant has about $27 million of improvements going on. They're beginning this year, actually, but going into the next 2 fiscal years after 25, 26. So we'll need to borrow about $6.5 million to cover our share, our 20% of those projects at the wastewater treatment plant. And there are other unfunded projects in the sewer fund, as we talked about at CIP time. We haven't begun to touch those I&I projects that were identified by the McClure study. In total, those are up to about $30 million. Those are not part of our planned future debt today, but they are on the horizon. So I think it's important that we keep that in mind as we move forward and move through budget. And that is all I have for you tonight.
Questions
I
for
was hoping
Jason?
to take up a little more time, but
Jerry?
Oh, thank you, Your Honor. You're talking about the sewer debt. The sewer debt is not paid off with property tax, though. The sewer debt is paid off with sewer fees, correct?
that's correct. Yep.
Thank you.
Other questions? All right, thank you, Jason.
No problem.
Appreciate your time and your efforts. Lots of challenges, but some good news to be delivered today. We like that. All right, let's take a look at our consent agenda item. Is there any council person who has questions or comments on consent this evening? All right, hearing none, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve our remaining consent agenda items.
So moved.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we'll take up consent as written. Council members, do you have any questions on the items to appear this evening? A robust agenda of 2. Now, 3, I guess. All right, we'll leave our agenda for 7 o'clock the way it sits. I don't have anything to add to that agenda. Does anybody else have anything to add? Before we break, since we have a bunch of time, maybe John Burns could give us a little what's up on Winterfest.
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. Thanks for the chance to talk about it. So we had our first ever rebrand of the old Winter Carnival and really targeted at getting people outside and giving them something to do in the winter months. So we did that up at the landing. So it was a great turnout. We estimate around 400 to 500 people, depending on how many spectators came through in about a 3-4 hour window. And really looking forward to growing it in the future. So awesome event. It just kind of shows the flexibility and the cool things we can do with the landing as it continues to grow. So I hope to be bringing you all more awesome events like that in the future.
Basically ran out of skates in multiple sizes
Skates and hot dogs.
and ran out of hot dogs.
That's right.
That's a meeting.
Was that you that, yeah.
Yeah?